Pulisic, Giroud and Leao up front. And as I mentioned, Milan defending the goal away to the left in the first half, but it's Paris in possession of the ball.
Yeah, and I think the pattern we're going to see, Mike, in general, is that Paris will want the majority of possession, and what Milan are going to try and do is disrupt them with that press that Stefano Pioli likes to utilise. It's going to be about whether Paris can play through that press with precision.
They're going to try and do so now. The ball is on this near side, the Paris left, with Kylian Mbappe just a few metres in from the touchline, but they've lost out, and Milan have it themselves midway inside their own half. Eventually, there's a free kick for a foul on Christian Pulisic. Luis Enrique takes a sip from his water bottle. He's sitting a little bit more comfortably than he would have done at St James's Park a few weeks ago.
There was nothing comfortable about that trip to St James's Park for Paris. But I think what's interesting about this lineup, it's a very similar shape to the one they used against Borussia Dortmund, and already the man I thought was man of the match in that game, Vitinha, is starting to pick up some really good positions just in that inside left channel, and he works hard without the ball as well. They had a lovely balance in midfield in that game against Dortmund. That's what they're going for again tonight.
Talking of that, do you think that the fact that Kalulu has been brought in probably to deal with the pace of Mbappe might get a little bit preoccupied with Mbappe, giving Vitinha some space behind him? I
think that's what they will try and do. They'll try and drag him out of position. Kalulu, we know, was outstanding in the run-in when they won Serie A a couple of seasons ago, but he's often played at centre-back, so it'll be interesting to see how he copes.
Paris have possession deep inside, Milan half on the far side. The Paris right, and across from Dembele is almost met by Kolo Muani. It's away initially by Milan. Paris come again, just outside the penalty area, fairly central, with Rafael Leao. Now it's to this near side, the left. Hernandez back into Kolo Muani, who tries to cross from the left. The ball has still not been cleared away by Milan here. Hernandez hooks it back in. Eventually, it's headed away, but only as far as Milan Skriniar.
Super piece of defending from Fikayo Tomori a few moments ago, because they got an overload on that right-hand side, cut the ball back, and it was an excellent challenge from him. If he doesn't get there, that's the opening goal.
Lucas Hernandez back down this near side, the Paris left. 3 minutes played in the French capital. Paris Saint-Germain 0, Milan 0. Matchday 3 of the UEFA Champions League 2023-24. Group F, and we have a fairly hefty challenge over on the far side, which has resulted in the first yellow card of the game. Malik Thiaw on Randall Kolo Muani.
Yeah, Malik Thiaw was sent off against Juventus at the weekend. Similar position, really. A little bit deeper when he clashed with Moise Kean in that game, and he was just a little bit too front foot. This is what Milan like to do in general. They like to be aggressive, try and be front foot, try and snap in with those challenges, but you've got to really pick your moments. And Malik Thiaw's a young defender. He's getting better all the time, but he's still learning about when to go and when not to go, and there he got suckered into making that challenge.
And inside 4 minutes, one of Milan's defenders is on a yellow card. Incidentally, Yunus Musa, if he got booked tonight, he would miss the return game in Milan. Paris have possession. They had much of the possession so far. Great turn in midfield by Warren Zaire-Emery. Played out to the far side, the Paris right, at the angle of the penalty area. Ousmane Dembele bearing down on the Milan box. Eventually, it's away by Milan, but they just can't clear their lines properly. And Paris come again. It's over on the far side. It's all a bit untidy until the ball is brought under control now with Hernandez towards this left side. Back to the halfway line for the appropriately named Milan Skriniar, who has actually played for one of the Milan clubs in Inter. Two brothers playing on opposite sides. We have a Milan playing for Paris and a German playing for Milan.
Lots of subplots. There was a very kind of collegiate kiss on the cheek for Theo Hernandez on Luca Hernandez, but that's about as nice as it's going to get, I think, for the next couple of hours.
Stefano Pioli is in a a brilliant white pair of trainers, or sneakers, tennis shoes, whatever you want to call them, in his technical area. He stands out there. It remains 0-0 in the early stages of this game.
Yeah, we've had the first goal of the late kickoffs, and it's gone the way of Celtic. They lead Atletico on 4 minutes. A tremendous 1-2 from Kyogo Furuhashi. He worked it to the edge of the box. O'Reilly shifted it back into his path. He cut him from the right and slipped it past Oblak. Celtic 1, Atletico 0.
Milan losing possession just inside their own half, and then committing a foul on Manuel Ugarte, who stepped in to pounce on the ball. And now Paris have a free kick, and it's another yellow card for another of the Milan players. That's 2 yellow cards, and we've not even reached 10 minutes.
Yeah, Ugarte did well there. He just nipped in ahead of Krunic, and Krunic didn't see him coming really, moved across, clipped him. I think it is the right decision, and Milan, as you say, in the first 7 minutes, have picked up a couple of yellow cards, and the problem there is their whole game plan tonight seems to be high press. Let's try and disrupt Paris in possession. They're swarming all over them, really pressing high, but to do that, you have to walk a disciplinary tightrope. They've fallen off that tightrope a couple of times already.
This time it's a foul that's given Milan a free kick. Zaire Emery on Olivier Giroud. I did notice that Zaire Emery, every time he picked up the ball in that midfield area, like you said, they're converging on him as quickly as possible.
Because they recognise the threat. I mean, he's 17, but he's already got that physicality, he's already got that aura about him, and he affects the game, which is what I love about him. He's always trying to make something happen. Those two free eights, Zaire Emery and Vitinha, either side of Ugarte, it's a lovely balance in midfield for Paris.
Zaire Emery actually missed the Strasbourg game at the weekend with an ankle problem, but he's fit tonight. His team have to defend this free kick. It's a fair way out. Christian Pulisic and Theo Hernandez are in discussion over the ball. Olivier Giroud is looking menacing in the penalty area. Clearly he will be a target. It's probably about midway inside the half. Pulisic drifts it to the far edge of the area. That's the Milan left, but it's easily dealt with by Paris, who come away with it through their Morocco international, Achraf Hakimi. Back to his captain, Marquinhos. Hernandez, this is nice and steady from Paris. Mbappe, first time we've really seen him on the ball, just inside the Milan half. Zaire Emery. Milan a little less keen to go right in on the Paris players in this particular passage of play, but they are closing the spaces, and it's forcing the ball all the way back to Skriniar.
I think one of the things they'll have noticed, Milan, as well, from that Newcastle game is how Newcastle were able to use that press as such a weapon against Paris. They're trying to do that. I mean, they generally do it anyway. It's one of the things Stefano Pioli likes to utilise, that high press, but they're hoping to have the same kind of success. But of course, the crowd isn't on their side as it was with Newcastle.
The noise inside St James's Park for that Matchday 2 game was incredible. And it is noisy in the Parc des Princes tonight as we approach 10 minutes of play. It remains Paris 0, Milan 0. Paris starting the game on 3 points, courtesy of that win over Borussia Dortmund. Milan have 2 points from 2 0-0 draws. And it's Milan who have possession just inside the Paris half. Central. Musa spreads it to this right side, just on the edge of the area is Christian Pulisic, trying to make his way around his marker, and he clips in a nice ball to the back post, which is a teasing one. Hakimi has to deal with it. I'm surprised no one attacked it.
It's a nice idea, but Giroud actually, who would normally maybe be on that far post, had actually pulled off a little bit towards the penalty spot, and he's saying to Christian Pulisic, if you got your head up, you would have seen where I was. So just a bit of a miscommunication there, but they have won the corner.
So over on the far side of the field, which is the Milan left, is going to be taken by tonight's captain for Milan, Theo Hernandez. Left-footed, driven in, clipped away off the head of Marquinhos, collected on this near side. Pulisic goes down the line, he gets away from his man near the corner flag. Pulisic has time to look up, but good recovery tackle from Vitinha. to concede the corner.
Yeah, it was excellent from Vitinha because Pulisic had got away from him. It was a lovely piece of skill. And then Vitinha just turned around and said, right, I'm chasing you down. I'm not letting you get this cross in. And that's kind of the schooling that he had at Porto, I think, you know, that willingness to compete all the time.
It's another Milan corner, this time from the near side of the field, their right. Most of the players who are inside the penalty area are bunched up around the penalty spot. Clearly, Milan will try and make a break and all split once the corner comes in. That's the problem for Paris, to try and keep tabs on everybody. Pulisic to take it. Oh, he's driven it low to the edge of the area. The intention was to see if it could be driven in by Rafael Leao, which indeed it was, but it was way off target. Nevertheless, it's another corner, I think.
The idea was nice, but Rafael Leao starts wider of the goal, so it's really difficult then to wrap your boot around it and get it on target. So the idea was nice, but it was always going to be a tricky chance there.
Well, having lost possession, Milan have won it back, then they've given it away again. Vitinha to this near side, hugging the touchline is Kylian Mbappe. He steps in and away from Kalulu. But Milan doing a really good job of hustling and bustling Paris into giving the ball away, and now Milan have won a free kick. It's proving quite effective so far.
And the key there, Mike, was that they doubled up, so Pulisic came back to help Kalulu. Mbappe could dance inside the challenge of Kalulu, that's fine, but then Pulisic's there to box him off. So they're going to have to keep on doing that, work in tandem, work as a pair to try and make it tough for Mbappe, because as we know, one-on-one, he's a nightmare to deal with. Two-on-one, it's a slightly different game.
But it is a demanding approach for a full 90 minutes.
Yes, so it's about whether they can maintain that. They are very good at it. It's been a big part of what they've done well under Stefano Pioli. They've had that high press, they've had that defensive quality.
In the meantime, they're coming forward here. Played through, Pulisic is after it. Out comes Donnarumma, the former Milan goalkeeper, along with Marquinhos to block the ball. They win the goal kick, but Reinders with the ball through for Pulisic. The angle was far too acute, but it was a threat nonetheless.
Yeah, and Tijjani Reinders is really good at that. He's really good at picking up those areas in the half spaces, the kind of inside right and inside left channel, and then threading those balls through. Just a little bit wide for Pulisic on that occasion.
Paris have given the ball away again, and Milan come forward, but they've been rather wasteful in giving it straight back to the home team. Vitinha out to the far side. Hakimi across the halfway line for Paris. 0-0 at the Parc des Princes. 13 minutes played on UEFA Champions League Matchday Live. It's going to be a throw-in on the far side to Milan.
We've just got the first few little signs that the Paris fans are getting a little frustrated with what Milan are doing at the moment. Milan will love that. They will hear that and think, OK, well, we must be doing something right. And they are. They're disrupting Paris's flow, disrupting their rhythm. They haven't really given up that many chances so far.
Given what they had to endure in their last match, they would be hoping that Paris will come out all guns blazing, as they say. But that's not been the case so far. They're having to be quite deliberate in their approach here. Skriniar across the halfway line to Marquinhos, and now Hakimi, the far right for Paris, clipped over the top. It's a really good ball towards Ousmane Dembele, but whether he took his eye off the ball, I don't know, but he just couldn't get the ball under control. Yeah,
it was a super ball to him. Colomouani had made a very good run alongside him. It would have been asking a lot, but if he could have just jabbed that with the outside of his boot into the penalty area, that would have been a chance for Colomouani maybe to have a strike on goal. But the idea was right and the ball was pretty much perfect.
I mentioned in the introduction that it's been 22 and a half years since these two clubs met in the UEFA Champions League. They met in the second group stage in the 2000-2001 season. Both games ended in a 1-1 draw, but they met prior to that in the semi-finals of the competition back in the mid-90s, where Milan prevailed but then lost in the final to Ajax. Here they come now down the far side, crossed in from the left. Not a bad cross, a little deep. The run was very probing from Leao. Milan build again inside the centre circle. Out to the far side. But slightly wasteful, and it's a throw-in to Paris. Neither neither team really get into any kind of momentum so far.
Okay, RB Leipzig have taken the lead against Cervena Zvezda. David Raum with a lovely low finish after being played in by Xavi Simons. So Leipzig 1, Cervena Zvezda 0. Let's go to Newcastle, where it's all going on, Joe Shannon.
Newcastle 0, Dortmund 0. Both goalkeepers outstanding so far. Nick Pope has made a remarkable double save from Marlon and Fulkrug, and also had to make a smart save with his feet to deny Marlon very early on. At the other end, Gregor Kobel has made 2 good stops to deny Anthony Gordon. The atmosphere is ferocious. The rain is driving. Quarter of an hour gone. Newcastle 0, Dortmund 0.
Paris have a really good chance. Milan have a really good opportunity here, because Rafael Leao was brought down just outside the penalty area by Achraf Hakimi. They have a free kick. Hakimi's been booked. It's a shooting position.
And that was round 2 of their contest. Round 1 was a couple of minutes ago when Rafael Leao just zoomed beyond Hakimi. That takes some doing.
Not many people do that.
Exactly. So he won that race and then managed to get away from him a second time. And now that Hakimi's been booked, that changes the dynamic of that little one-on-one battle significantly. And this free kick position might change things significantly as well, because they've got a number of players who can strike the ball from this kind of range.
It's just to the left of the D. It's about 20 metres out. There are 4 players over the ball. Hernandez, Giroud are 2 of them. Giroud seems the keenest to hit this. You'd say traditionally it would be more suitable for a right-footed player, but given the way that players are able to bend the ball these days and drop it under the crossbar, anyone can have a go. Milan have in discussion still. Paris have a large wall and a player laying down behind that wall, but Milan have a wall in front of the Paris wall. It's a double wall here to try and distract the defensive team. Here comes the free kick. It's actually been taken by, I think it was Tomori.
It was Tomori, yeah. And he was...
So we were fooled.
Very early on in the discussions, he was stood there next to Giroud, looking very confident, and he actually isn't too far away from getting that up and over the wall. It was a really good leap by Ugarte to send that behind for the corner.
It's another Milan corner from the far side, their left. They're having a really good spell at the moment, the visiting team. Giroud trying to shrug off his man. In it goes, headed away at the near post by Randall Kolo Muani, back defending for Paris. Milan try and get the ball again. It drops in a huddle, and then Vitinha nips in to take it. But immediately Giroud is straight on Marquinhos.
The game plan's working, Mike, at the moment, because they're being aggressive without the ball, pressing high up the field, and Paris is struggling to deal with it at the moment.
Okay, notable change at Newcastle, Joe Shannon.
Alexander Isak has had to leave the field. He was an injury down before the game, of course, but judged fit enough to start. He's been taken off, though, having gone down. He's been treated, and Callum Wilson is onto the field. It's Newcastle 0, Dortmund 0, as Donyell Marlon sees a shot deflected over.
Brilliant end-to-end game there. Elsewhere, Young Boys 0, Manchester City 0, Leipzig 1, Cervena Zvezda 0, Celtic 1, Atletico 0, Antwerp 0, Porto 0, and goalless at present in France, Mike Schul.
19 minutes played at the Parc des Princes. Paris 0, Milan 0. No real notable chances as yet, primarily down to the fact that Milan are stifling Paris, or at least they have until now. They're coming forward down the far side. If Dembele can keep this in, he can't, and it's going out for a goal kick to AC Milan.
Bit of a collector's item, that, Mike. A sliced clearance from Mike Maignan. Don't usually associate him with that. He's usually so sure-footed in possession. He didn't play at the weekend, maybe a tiny bit rusty, but it's been a really interesting first 20 minutes, because Paris, I think, wanted to set the tempo, wanted to play their way into the game, wanted to dominate possession, and Milan are making it really difficult for them all over the pitch. It's not just a high press, they're swarming them everywhere. So Paris finding it really difficult to have any space to do their damage.
Giroud and Leao are loitering inside the Paris penalty area as Donnarumma is forced to clear out to the far side. You were telling me before we went on air about Donnarumma, an excellent goalkeeper, but not overly confident with his feet.
That's right. He's an old-school goalkeeper. You know, he's a wonderful shot stopper. We know how brilliant he was at the European Championship, but with the ball at his feet, isn't always the most confident. You can press him, and that's what Milan are trying to do. I was at Wembley to watch England against Italy, and he had a couple of shaky moments where England, who do operate a high press sometimes, made him play the ball very hurriedly, and that's what Milan are trying to do to him, and of course they know him inside out.
Vitinha on the halfway line for Paris. Ball brought under control and played to Hernandez on this near side. The older of the two Hernandez brothers. He has it by the touchline on the near side now. High ball up towards Mbappe, who's been a very quiet figure so far. But of course we know he can burst into life at any moment. He has it now on the left-hand angle of the area. Plays the ball square to the far side of the box. Hakimi into Dembele, just inside the right angle this time. Then onto his left foot, but no real height on the ball, but it's not been cleared properly. Mbappe strikes it in, and that's the first real shot we've had on target from Kylian Mbappe.
Yeah, worth a go. There wasn't much more he could do there, just on the edge of the D, being closed down. One of the things Luis Enrique teams like to do is work the ball to the edge of the area in the centre, so on the D. So whereas a lot of teams will flood the box and have their players in the box, what Luis Enrique teams like to do is leave a guy on the edge and hope they've got the space to shoot. Milan are being very, very aware of that at the moment. Krunic is trying to pick up that spot as much as he possibly can.
Again, Milan pressing very high up the pitch. Paris having to work their way out of their own penalty area, and they do so with a long ball down the far side, the right. It was left by Theo Hernandez, with Dembele in close attendance, and the flag has gone up straight away for a foul by Ousmane Dembele.
Yeah, Dembele's opened the jail door for him and waved him out there, because Theo Hernandez was in big trouble there. Dembele had him where he wanted him, and just that little nudge sends him over, and as soon as Theo Hernandez feels that, he knows that he's won that particular battle. So the problem Theo Hernandez got himself in was he let the ball bounce. If he clears that first time, then he's probably okay, but he was smart.
Luis Enrique is up on his feet to issue some instructions. Slight break in play at the moment. We're at the midway point of the first half. Paris 0, Milan 0 on UEFA Champions League Matchday Live. It remains Newcastle 0, Dortmund 0 in the other Group F game.
Sorry, Mike, I was just going to say, I think one of the really interesting things about the early weeks of Luis Enrique's reign is how quickly he's actually been able to make this look, for better or worse, like a Luis Enrique team. And as we know, with Spain, they play some wonderful football, they keep possession. The thing he's got to try and find, if he can, is that balance between having control, which is what he always talks about, wants to control games as much as he can, but also having the ability to break a team open. You look at all the individual quality they have, it's about trying to unlock that a little bit more, but in terms of control and possession, they already look like a Luis Enrique team, and that's quite impressive. In the grand scheme of things, he's not been in Paris very long, but they already look like one of his teams.
3.5 months he's been in the job. Prior to that, as Kevin mentioned, with Spain, and then club-wise with Barcelona. As we all know, he won the UEFA Champions League with Barca back in 2015, where they beat an Italian team. His team tonight are up against Italy's Milan, and Paris have it over on the far side of the field with Hakimi to Dembele. Nice little shift of feet from Ousmane Dembele, almost in a blink of an eye.
Yeah, I think Kalulu's done the right thing there. He's cleared it behind for a corner first time. Didn't have a clue what was behind him, so it was right to approach that in a safety-first manner. He's looked quite solid so far, Kalulu. He's a great young player.
In for Davide Calabria, who's on the bench tonight. One of 2 changes made by Stefano Pioli ahead of this game. The change made by Paris was bringing Vitinha in, and he's the player who's about to take this corner from the Paris left. It's going to be an in-swinging right footer. It's low to the near post, headed away, straight back to the feet of Vitinha. This time he's got more of an angle, and he goes deep, and there's nobody there.
penalty to Atletico in Glasgow. Celtic leading by 1-0, but Antoine Griezmann steps up, left-footed. Oh, he's denied by Hart, but turns in the rebound. And relief for Atletico. They have got their equaliser. Joe Hart smiles in disbelief, having nearly got there, but Antoine Griezmann on the rebound from the penalty has made it Celtic 1, Atletico 1.
Still no goals here as Milan come forward. Nice little play by Giroud, a back heel into the path of Leao from the edge of the area. Leao shoots and, goodness me, it looked like it was going to creep in. Donnarumma clearly had it covered.
It was a really smart effort, because what he's done is he's just tried to use the defenders as shields so that Donnarumma can't really see what's going on. There's a lot of traffic in front of him. He's just trying to bend that inside the far post. I think you're right, Mike. I think Donnarumma probably would have got there. I think he did have it covered. But that was a worthy effort from Rafael Leao. We're starting to see him have more and more of an influence in the game, and that's something he will want to do more in the UEFA Champions League. He's only got a couple of goals in this competition, but as we saw last season against Napoli, in the blink of an eye, he can change a game. He went on that storming run against Napoli, which led to them winning a penalty. So it's just about getting him into areas consistently where he can run at Hakimi, who's on a yellow card, start to open that side of the game up for Milan.
3 goals in Serie A this season for Rafael Leao. He actually did have one season in France for Lille when they finished runners-up to Paris Saint-Germain back in 2019. Here are the home team, but they've lost possession inside the Milan half. It's on the D. Played out carefully. Reinders. He's just clipped from behind there. And that's going to be a free kick to Milan. And Warren Zaire-Emery with the challenge.
He's a lovely player to watch, Reinders. He's so aware of everything around him. He dances out of those tricky little spots time and time again. He can play in lots of different ways. He can play deep and he can start the play from there, or he can be in a more advanced role in those kind of half spaces and just sliding the ball through for teammates. He was great in the Netherlands with RZ, and he's continued that form really with Milan. And what's amazing, talked about how quickly Luis Enrique's made this look like a Luis Enrique team in Paris. Reinders looks like he's been at Milan for years. He's settled in so quickly. Still only a young player. He's been super.
Tijani Reinders, 25 years of age. Just watching Rada Krunic receive some treatment to, I don't know if it's a facial injury or an injury to his nose, but he's being patched up. So Milan are down to 10 men at the moment. Now he trots back on the field. And Leao has it on the halfway line, almost at the half-hour mark. We still await a goal in Paris. So it's, 7.5 hours since Milan last scored in the Champions League. But they've played well so far. They've done a job on keeping Paris quiet. Just the one shot from Mbappe. And now Milan come away with it inside the Paris half. Tomori down the near side, the right. It just gets beyond Giroud, but his long legs get there ahead of Skriniar. Just waiting for support. Tucks it infield. It's well read, though, by Paris Saint-Germain. Warren Zaire-Emery coming away with it now. Into the Milan half on the left. Mbappe, midway inside Milan territory. Mbappe steps in field, then checks and comes back to the left. Milan have had a chance to regroup. Mbappe, 25 metres out, fairly central. No room for a shot. So he goes out to Marquinhos. And now it's with Dembele. The momentum has been lost.
Yeah, Milan got away with that, really. Olivier Giroud, such an experienced player. I think he'll be frustrated with himself for playing that ball into the centre, into such a dangerous area, not least because he knew Tomori had come up from centre-back to help the attack. So they got away with that.
Another good tackle by Milan in midfield. I think it was Krunic getting in to impede their progress. And now Pulisic has it. Down this near side, the right, just guides it down the flank. Hernandez has switched to this near side on the corner of the penalty area. His ball in is too far ahead of Giroud. A lovely first touch in midfield as Paris come away with the ball now themselves. Kolo Muani, who was deep inside his own half. Now Mbappe, 25 metres out with a shot. Plenty of venom, but way off the target.
Thanks, Mark. OK, let's go to Newcastle. 30 minutes have been played there, Joe Shannon.
Newcastle 0, Dortmund 0. A thrilling game played at a frenetic pace. Big chances at both ends. Nick Pope's spectacular double save, a highlight so far. While Anthony Gordon's twice been denied by Gregor Kobel at the other end. Newcastle have a corner on the near side of the field in front of the travelling supporters with just under 30 minutes played and the rain still tumbling down. Trippier's delivery headed away at the near post. The atmosphere has been absolutely feverish from minute one, and somehow it's still Newcastle 0, Dortmund 0.
Some atmosphere in Glasgow as well, where Celtic have retaken the lead against Atletico. A cross low from the left-hand side reached Luis Palma inside the penalty area, and from a really acute angle he just hit it so cleanly in off the far post, past Oblak. Some strike and some celebration too. Celtic 2, Atletico 1. Elsewhere, Antwerp 0, Porto 0, Leipzig 1, Cervena Zvezda 0. They thought they had a penalty, the visitors, but it was overturned on a VAR review, and it's still Young Boys 0, Manchester City 0 in Switzerland. 30 minutes gone.
Just over half an hour played in Paris. Paris have a throw-in on the near side, their left. Mbappe is just doing his laces up, and they're just buying a few seconds. They want to change the ball as well. Both coaches are walking around their technical areas. In fact, Stefano Pioli is being spoken to by the fourth official, Matej Jug. Maybe he's encroaching slightly, as you might call it. It's not the biggest technical area you'll see in Champions League football.
If you've got trainers as nice as that, you want to show them off,
well,
right?
Why not?
You want to wander around, let more people see them. Like you, I'm a big fan of the suit and, you know, ice white trainers look. Yeah. Very continental.
Very continental. Now, Zaïre across the halfway line for Paris. The noise increases from the home fans. Mbappe to the edge of the area. Mbappe! He's not featured much so far, but when he does, he makes the impact. And Paris Saint-Germain have broken the deadlock after 32 minutes. And it's that man again. It's Kylian Mbappe.
And that's his party piece, Mike. He's so good at that. That ability to shift the ball onto his right and then drag it into the near corner. It's something he's worked on the training field time and time and time again. And what it means is that when a defender thinks he's squared him up, when he thinks he's got him, he hasn't. Because he's got that ability to just create enough space, and then the goalkeeper has no chance to readjust, because normally a striker would probably go for the far corner, because once you've come up into that area, you've opened up the whole goal for yourself. But what Mbappe does brilliantly is just drags it back the other way, because at that stage, Tomori thinks he's got him, thinks he's close enough. He isn't, and he fires it through his legs, and Maignan all his weight on the other foot, thinking it's going that side, and it's dragged to his right, and he can't adjust in time. Brilliant goal.
Completely static on his line, Mike Maignan, as Kylian Mbappe scores his second UEFA Champions League goal of the season and his fifth goal in his last 4 matches. And Paris are coming forward again, and it is with the goal scorer on the near side, the left. For so long, Milan had thwarted them, frustrated them, harassed them. But when you've got a player like Kylian Mbappe in your team, anything can happen at any moment.
And once he backs you up into the penalty area as well, it's really difficult then, because you can't be too aggressive, because if you are, you're likely to give away a penalty. So all you can do is try and make yourself a barrier. It's what Tomori tried to do, but Mbappe in those situations is elite. It's so difficult to stop him once he gets there. And interestingly, he'd started, you mentioned it, Mike, he'd started to grow into the game. He'd had that shot from the edge of the area which would whistle past the far post. He was becoming more and more of an influence. And slightly against the run of play, really, he's been able to grab this game and drag it Paris as well.
Credit where credit is due. Warren Zaïre won the ball inside his own half, shrugged off a couple of hefty challenges to feed the ball to Mbappe. He's been quite key so far in getting possession for Paris, despite the circumstances. And now Milan find themselves trailing. And it's clipped to this near side, their right. Pulisic is not going to be able to keep that in play. Is it going to knock the confidence of the Milan players, given how well they'd dealt with the situation?
I think it's one of those things against, one of the world's best players. A lot of the people would argue he's the world's best player. you're going to have moments like that. The overall plan, I think, has worked. I think they've pressed them. I think they've made it difficult for them to really open Milan up too often. Milan have had a couple of nice moments on the counter. Everything that Stefano Pioli would have said to them before they went out there, they've done, and it's largely worked. Sometimes you're on the wrong end of a world-class talent.
Paris moving forward down the far side. 10 minutes to go with the first 45. They lead through Mbappe's goal. Zaire Emery outside his own penalty area. Seemed to have lost the ball, but then miraculously won it back again. Hakimi on the far side now, up against Hernandez. Back to Dembele. Paris being patient. Ugarte. Play being switched from right to left. Hernandez on the near side. Vitinha, nice, comfortable, composed, precise passing from the home team. No need to hurry. They've got that goal in the bank, and they can just relax slightly now, safe in the knowledge they have an advantage. Not that they wouldn't want to increase it before the break. Here's Dembele inside his own half on the centre circle. Moves the ball out to the right. Hakimi still in an advanced position. Kolomouane. And wins the throw-in. It's midway inside Milan territory.
He's worked quite hard, Rondel Kolomouane, to get into the game. He's trying to move all across the attacking line. That's what he likes to do. He did that really well for Eintracht Frankfurt last season. He's just trying to find little pockets of space where he can do some damage. He is a really active player, always on the front foot, trying to make things happen. That's why he's so good at making goals as well as scoring goals.
Dembele has tried to feed it into Hakimi, but the ball was far too far ahead of the Morocco fullback, and so it's trickled out for a goal kick to Milan. Just getting a replay of the goal, and you can see the way in which Zaire Emery just held his ground. As you mentioned, 17 years of age. His strength and the way he holds himself belies the years.
He's one of those players, they're not the same, but he's in that Bellingham mould of a player that you can't believe they're that age. And you're fascinated to think what they're going to be like in their mid-20s. It's extraordinary, the development.
Milan have turned defence into attack. The ball is played into the Paris area, not cleared that comprehensively. Eventually Zaire Emery is there, and he plays a lovely little reverse ball into Vitinha, into lots of space on the near side. He exchanges passes with Mbappe, or at least that was the intention. Mbappe has got company, so Vitinha has to go back to Zaire Emery. Now Ugarte. That goal for Paris has lifted their confidence, and they're beginning to control proceedings. Skriniar in the centre circle. Into Zaire Emery again. It's all very carefully worked into midfield and back out again if they can't find a way through. There's nothing hurried until I say that, and then Hernandez sends a route one ball to the far side of the field, and Milan are able to put it out.
Excellent commentator's jinx there, Mike. Well done. Always a big fan of those. Yeah, I think it's been really interesting since the goal, because Milan have just been knocked back a little. The ferocity of the press isn't quite there. You made the point, you can't maintain that all the way through, and that's right. You do have to have breathers as the game wears on. But I think they can't let Paris get too comfortable in possession. That's the danger as this half wears on. They daren't concede a second goal before half-time.
Paris in possession on the near side with Vitinha into Mbappe. The return ball is hit with too much pace, and it's gone out for a throw-in to Milan.
Yeah, Mbappe's angry with himself there because he knows that was a relatively routine return ball, but that sharpness is there from him. You saw it in the international break for France against the Netherlands and against Scotland. Saw it against Strasbourg in this stadium in Liga on Friday. When he's in that kind of mood, when he's got that sharpness, opposing teams had better beware, because he's such a danger.
Worth noting, Paris's home form in the UEFA Champions League. Only one defeat in their last 9 UEFA Champions League games at home, winning 7 of them. They've only lost 1 in 34 at home in the group stage, so that takes you back several years. They have a fairly ominous record, and it's very noisy inside the Parc des Princes at the moment. Milan have it though, looking for an equaliser. as we approach the final 5 minutes of the first half. Kalulu into Rafael Leao, who does a pirouette round one player, then steps beyond the other, and then he catches Marquinhos as the ball runs away from him.
Royal Antwerp have taken the lead against Porto. Al Hassan Yusuf, who actually came in for the injured Keita, that was the big team news. He scores the goal. Porto gave it away on the edge of their own box. It eventually popped out to Yusuf. Brilliant finish. Curled it right-footed into the top corner. Let's go to Newcastle, where it's still goalless, with Borussia Dortmund, Joe Shannon.
Yes, Newcastle 0, Dortmund 0. Still torrential rain here in the northeast of England. We thought that the Dortmund skipper Emre Can was going to have to go off injured. He limped off the field of play with what looked like a knee problem. Sally Özcan was stripped and ready to go to come on as his replacement, but in the last few moments Can has gotten himself back onto the field of play, and it looks as though Dortmund are going to try and manage that injury until half-time and then perhaps make a decision from that point. So Emre Can still on the field and still somehow, despite plenty of chances early on, no goals as yet.
Thanks, Joe. Elsewhere, Atletico thought they had an equaliser. Axel Witsel turning in across from the right, but he was offside when the ball came in. So Celtic still lead there 2-1. It's Leipzig 1, Crvena Zvezda 0, and Young Boys 0, Manchester City 0 at the moment.
Milan being forced back by their own corner flag on the far side, to the point where they've conceded a corner. Excellent work by Colomboani to put pressure on the Milan defence.
And that's another reason why this looks like a Luis Enrique team already, because he demands that kind of pressing, he demands that kind of effort. Without the ball, Thiaw had absolutely nowhere to go and was forced to concede that corner. Brilliant work from Colomboani.
So a Paris corner in the last few minutes of the first half, where they lead by a goal to 0. It's going to be taken from the far side of the field. Vitinha is over there to orchestrate it. 4 Paris players are jinking and ducking and diving around the penalty spot. It's been headed out. Ugarte lifts it back in. It's a curling one, which Maignan decides he won't try and catch. He'll just punch it away, because he was running at it full pelt. In the end, though, it goes out for a throw-in.
I wonder if Ugarte would try and tell you that he was just floating that into the penalty area. I would suggest he's going for goal there, and he's made a bit of a mess of it, and it nearly turned into the perfect cross.
Would have been a lovely drop shot in tennis. Bit of backspin. Right, Mbappe has played it in. Colomboani with a shot, and Thiaw deflects it over for another Paris corner.
Yeah, Thiaw did well. He read that, and he made sure that he created a barrier. But that's smart from Mbappe. Perfect weight of the pass. Colomboani had Dembele racing up alongside him, but decided to go for goal, which he was entitled to do. Good block.
A quick one. Emre Can has had to go off for Dortmund. Sally Özcan's replaced him in midfield. Newcastle 0, Dortmund 0.
Paris have a corner again from the right side. Marquinhos goes to the near post, tries to get the head to it. It's away by Milan to the edge of the area, but no one takes responsibility apart from Olivier Giroud, who is then tripped as he runs out, and it's going to be another yellow card, and this one for a Paris player. So that's 2 Milan players and 2 Paris players, this one being Ousmane Dembele. So they're 2-2 when it comes to yellow cards.
I'm going to suggest that was a forwards challenge. He didn't get anywhere near the ball there. It was absolutely the right decision. Giroud was on the move, and it stopped what was a promising counter for Milan. I think we just haven't seen that in the last few minutes. Milan have been a lot less of a threat going forwards. Need to get Rafael Leao on the ball a bit more. Need to get him thinking cynically, running at Achraf Hakimi, because Hakimi has been booked, will have that in his mind, won't be quite as free in his defending as he normally would be. That feels like the matchup that Milan need to be exploiting. They just haven't quite done that in the last few moments. And part of that is because Paris have been a lot more comfortable in possession.
Moving into the final minute of the first 45. Paris lead by a goal to 0. Milan try and clear. Giroud having to come deep to pick up the ball. Really good play by the elder statesman in the Milan team. Now 37 years of age, recently turned 37, Olivier Giroud. A Champions League winner with Chelsea. Krunic with some, what do you call that stuff? Just to stop the bleeding in the nose. Got it
wadding.
Wadding, stuffed up his nose. It's quite distinctive out there as Leao sends it across from the left. Pulisic waits. Good defensive work on the near side by Lucas Hernandez.
So he's forced the corner there, Rafael Leao, but I just wonder whether Pioli would have wanted him to get that ball down and run at Paris, because he's put that cross in, and yes, they've been able to win the corner, but I just think if he gets it down, runs at them, he maybe causes one or two more problems.
Christian Pulisic places the ball, wipes the residue off it and then lays it in the quadrant on this near side, the Milan right. Can they get an equaliser in added time? 2 minutes of added time to come. Pulisic delivers, clipped away off the head of a Paris player. It was Hakimi, and there's a foul now on Lucas Hernandez. It's going to be a free kick to Paris.
It's quite interesting if you think about Paris's recent history in the competition, and you think of some of the star players they've had. They've obviously had Lionel Messi, who for many people, you know, is the greatest player who's ever played the game. They've had Neymar. They've had incredible elite attacking talents. What they haven't, the puzzle they haven't quite solved in the last 2 or 3 years maybe, is how do you create a team that can genuinely win this competition by being really compact and having an identity and being able to get the best out of your attacking players while still having a structure. This is very early days, but it does feel like a Paris team that has structure. It feels like a Paris team that works without the ball and is willing to have that mobility to press. Certainly they're on the right track, I think.
We've had a goal in Newcastle. Your commentator is Joe Shannon.
Oh, lovely opportunity for the cross. It's pulled back to the edge of the penalty area, and the shot is driven in by Felix Nemecha into the corner, away from the diving Nick Pope, from just inside the penalty area. And Newcastle, despite all their pressure, trail at St James's Park, and it's the visitors Dortmund who score their first goal of this season's UEFA Champions League group stages. It's Newcastle 0, Dortmund 1, just as we enter first half stoppage time.
And that's the scoreline in Paris, but the home team lead here as the away team, Milan, come forward in the closing seconds. Theo Hernandez's cross is easily dealt with by the towering figure of Gianluigi Donnarumma, who immediately distributes the ball to this near side, the left, and the referee takes a look at his watch and decides that is the end of the first half. And after Milan stifled Paris for about half an hour, it required the renowned Kylian Mbappe to step in and score and give Paris the lead at half-time. His second goal in the UEFA Champions League this season. It's Paris Saint-Germain 1, AC Milan 0.
OK, still a couple more minutes of added time in Newcastle. Let's go to Joe Shannon.
And it's the Dortmund fans who are cheering high up in the Leazes end, at the end of the ground to our left-hand side. Newcastle 0, Dortmund 1. A Dortmund corner at the Gallagate end is punched away by Nick Pope. It's come back to Donyell Marlin to dink it across deep to the far post, and Pope, flapping at it, gets a glove on the ball but can only turn it behind for a corner. Felix Nemecha's goal separates the two teams in monsoon-like rain here in the northeast of England, and Newcastle, after all of the expectation and excitement provided by the matchday 2 victory over Paris here, that thumping 4-1 win, and suddenly find themselves behind. And it's the German club, the Bundesliga side, who've got their first goal of this season's Champions League group stages. Another corner whipped in by Royce towards the near post, and the referee spotted an infringement. Artur Diaz is the referee, and it's a free kick to Newcastle away to our right-hand side into their own penalty area. We've had chances at both ends. Newcastle in the early stages, buoyed by the home supporters. Anthony Gordon was denied twice by Gregor Kobel. Nick Pope has had 3 saves to make, the Newcastle goalkeeper, prior to conceding the only goal of the game so far. And there's been injury concerns for both sides too. Alexander Isak leaving the field after 15 minutes for Newcastle, and in the last few moments Dortmund have finally substituted Emre Can, their captain, who was limping. It looked as though he was going to try and keep going until half-time, but Dortmund have since taken off Emre Can, and Salih Özcan has come on as his replacement. It's Dortmund who lead by a goal to 0. 15 seconds of the first half to go. The noise is from the visiting supporters. Newcastle don't have possession in their black and white striped shirts, playing from right to left. Bruno Guimaraes loses the ball, and Dortmund are on the counter with Wolf travelling over the halfway line. The referee has pulled the play back, and has blown for half-time. We reached the end of the 4 minutes of stoppage time, and it's Dortmund who will be the happy of the two clubs. They soaked up the Newcastle pressure in the early stages. Fine finish from Nemecha from just inside the penalty area as we entered first half stoppage time, and at the break at St James's Park, it's Newcastle United 0, Dortmund 1.
Thanks, Joe. Half-time in all of our late kickoffs in the UEFA Champions League. At the moment, at Celtic, they're still playing there. A few seconds left. Celtic 2, Atletico 1. It's Young Boys 0, Manchester City 0. Leipzig lead Crvena Zvezda by 1-0, and it's Royal Antwerp 1, Porto 0. The break in Paris. Paris Saint-Germain have the lead. Kev Hatchard and Mike Stewart with me. Mike, good half, and one that Paris grew into.
Certainly did grow into it, because Milan, until the point when Mbappe scored the goal, had done a really good job, a very effective job of closing down the spaces. They'd been haranguing them very high up the pitch, even inside the Paris penalty area. But when you've got a player like Kylian Mbappe, as Kevin and I was saying, he can just pop out of nowhere. He had a chance just before that. He didn't touch the ball hardly at all in the opening 15 minutes or so. But when he got this opportunity after really good work by Zaire Emery, he took it, and Paris have that lead.
Kalulu had done a really good job against Mbappe for that first half hour, but it wasn't Kalulu who he ran at for the goal, it was Tomori. And there was a little moment when the ball was between Mbappe and Tomori, when Tomori thought about going to get it, thought about stepping out, and then he just retreated a tiny bit. And once that happens, Mbappe's got you, because he knows he's got you on the back foot. He knows he can just back you into the penalty area so you can't touch him, and he's got that incredible ability that not many other players have, of just looking as though he's going to open up the goal and then dragging it to the near post. He does it so quickly, and it takes the goalkeeper out of the equation, because they naturally have to gamble. They have to think you're going to go onto their left hands, and once they drag it to your right, you're out the game. You can't shift away.
So often when he's in those positions, almost any other player, you're like, well, there's a defender between you and the goal. You're probably not going to get a clean shot on goal, but you know you're in trouble when Mbappe's in those positions.
One of the only players I can think about in recent history in the Champions League who's got that ability is Arjen Robben. Because with Arjen Robben, you knew he was going to do it. Everybody knew he was going to cut in on his left and he was going to have a shot. But the biomechanics of it are so extraordinary that he has that hair trigger thing where it's just happened before you've even realised. You just don't have that reaction time. So he's got that ability to do that kind of thing. There isn't much you can do against it, really.
It's like when you watch those wildlife programs, isn't it? And you watch the predators stalking their prey, and they are motionless almost until they just wait for that weakness, wait for that opening, and they pounce so quickly that the prey cannot react quickly enough.
And it was really interesting how the game changed after that goal was scored, because it gave Paris that boost, because it hadn't been comfortable for them at that stage at all. They hadn't really been able to implement what they wanted to do. But as soon as the goal goes in, you could just see them relax a little bit more. Milan weren't quite snapping into the pressing as much as they had been. I think the one thing Stefano Pioli, the Milan coach, will be a little bit disappointed with is they haven't quite made the most of their attacking situations. They have had a few. It's just been overhit crosses or not quite the right option chosen. So they're getting into those positions in the final third. I think it's just about being a bit more clinical when they do that. This game's not over by any stretch, but that Mbappe goal has just very much changed the dynamic of it.
OK, guys, take a break. Half-time, Paris Saint-Germain 1, AC Milan 0. 2 matches complete already tonight in Group H. Barcelona look to maintain their perfect start to the Champions League as they welcomed Shakhtar. Stephen Wyeth and Alvaro Romeo watch this for Matchday Live.
Gundogan with the pass out wide left to Alonso, who returns it to the German. Oh, super pass, it's in, it's a chance, it's off the post, and then the rebound is smashed in by Ferran Torres. It is a goal.
Referee Vincic is just checking his watch, and he blows a whistle to start the second half, and Milan have possession, trailing by a goal to nil. In all white, they will attack the goal away to the left in the second half. Paris in all blue with red trim will defend that goal to the left, and they've already won back possession inside their own half. I wonder whether Milan will continue to do what they did from the start of the game. They tailed off a little bit towards the end of the first half.
I think they have to try. I think that is the game plan. I think Stefano Pioli will have said to his players at half-time, look, most of it was fine. We got undone by a world-class player. That can happen. But the overall game plan largely worked. I think he'll just want a little bit more intensity. It just dropped off a bit in the final 10 minutes of that first half. He'll want to get that going again. I think when they get Rafael Leao in positions where he can attack Achraf Hakimi, they need to try and do that more and more. Get him on the ball more. He's the one that can really open this game up for them.
Milan go long down centre field. Donnarumma's out quickly, but he's come away from the ball. It's headed back in towards an empty goal. Cover from Skriniar. Donnarumma gets back into position. The cross from the right is then cleared away by Hernandez, and that was a bit worrying for Paris as the long ball came through.
I think he lost his bearings a little bit, Donnarumma, and because the ball bounced so high, suddenly he's a tall man, but suddenly he realised, well, I can't use my hands, so I'm going to have to go for the header. So got a little bit fortunate. Giroud did everything he could do, which was to try and head that goalwards as strongly as he possibly could, and it was actually really smart from both Skriniar and Marquinhos just dropping back just to make sure nothing untoward could happen.
Results in a throw for Milan on the far side of the field, their right. Launched into the penalty area, clipped away by Lucas Hernandez. Milan pick up the loose ball. Claims for handball against the Milan player. I don't think that player knew where the ball was, and now Paris are breaking away down this near side, the right. Ousmane Dembele seemingly going it alone and scoring a fantastic goal. 2 minutes into the second half. Paris strike goal number 2, and it's Ousmane Dembele. Paris 2, Milan 0.
And that's how you can be punished at this level, because it only takes a moment's inattention. It was a bouncing ball that Tomori didn't quite deal with. He lost his bearings a little bit. It bounced into midfield. Paris were far quicker than Milan to react to that. And once you've got Ousmane Dembele one-on-one running at a player, it's so difficult because he's got that ability, like Mbappe, to shift the ball quickly and get that shot away. Tomori loses his balance, loses his bearings, and they give the ball away in the centre circle, and then Paris move through the gears so quickly, and then Dembele, nice touch to take him in towards goal, and he just uses Tomori, who's a little bit ragged because he's running back from that initial error, and then he just passes that into the far corner. It was a lovely finish.
I don't know if they're looking at the build-up to that, because there looked like there may have been a challenge by Ugarte, and indeed that's the case. Referee Vincic is waiting on a goal check because of the challenge by Ugarte. He's now going to come off the field to check it. This goal may not stand.
So when Tomori loses where he is and then plays that panicky ball into the centre circle, Musa tries to get hold of it, and Ugarte comes across and doesn't really get the ball. He gets the man, and then that opens it up for Paris. So they'll obviously take a look at this. It's a big decision to make, but it seems from what we can see that Ugarte gets the man and not the ball. So be interested to see what the call is.
The referee's turning away from the screen. No goal. It has been disallowed for the foul by Ugarte on Musa. So Ousmane Dembele is going to have to wait a little longer. It's been a year since he last scored in the Champions League. It remains Paris 1, Milan 0.
A goal for Manchester City. The defending champions are ahead at Young Boys, and it is Mamol Akanji back in his home country to pounce to score. Ruben Diaz with a header from a delivery into the box. Brilliant save by the goalkeeper to tip it onto the bar, but it bounced down to Akanji. He turns it in. Young Boys 0, Manchester City 1. Let's go to Newcastle. Back underway there in the rain. Joe Shannon.
Newcastle 0, 0, Dortmund 1. Unrelenting torrential rain here. 2 minutes into the second half. It's the visitors who lead, courtesy of Felix Nemec's goal in first half stoppage time. Fine finish. Prior to that, there'd been chances at both ends. Both sides have seen a key player leave the field due to injury. For Newcastle, Alexander Isak, and the Dortmund captain, Emre Can, has also had to be substituted. Newcastle looking to summon up the spirits of matchday 2, but they trail here to Dortmund by a 0-0.
Goal for Porto. They've equalised away at Royal Antwerp. It is Evan Nielsen who's got the goal there shortly after the restart. So it is Royal Antwerp 1, Porto 1. Evan Nielsen on as a substitute right at the end of the first half. He's had a real impact at the start of the second.
5 minutes gone in the second half in Paris. Paris 1, Milan 0. And after Milan had that reprieve when the second goal by Paris was ruled out for a foul, they've just attacked themselves. Pulisic's ball to the back post. It was a very acute angle in the end for Olivier Giroud, though if anyone's going to score from that angle, it would be Olivier Giroud. And on the full stretch, he seems to have just tweaked a muscle.
Yeah, he was desperately trying to get there. The angle, as you say, was getting narrower all the time. I'm a little bit surprised that Pulisic doesn't go for goal himself, because it's a direct ball over the top to find him. I wonder if the goal had been scored, whether they'd have gone back and actually found he was slightly offside. It would have been ever so tight. But I was a little surprised that Pulisic didn't go for goal himself. He made a very early decision to cross that for Giroud. He actually had a fair bit of space in front of him, but of course these are always split-second decisions. It's very easy for me to say, having not scored a Champions League goal myself.
Milan have it with Musa on the halfway line. Plenty of players in the vicinity to interrupt the play, disrupt it. Zaïre is there. Ball is pinging around between blue and white, and blue come away with it. Paris Saint-Germain to the left, just outside the area. It's with Kylian Mbappe, still Mbappe. Well-worked play by Calabria on as a substitute, but experienced enough to not commit himself.
Yeah, he stood up really well, and he's just shouted at his teammates to say, "Where were you?"
Quickly taken the corner. Here's Dembele, saved. The rebound, though, is tucked away by Randell Kolo Muani. Milan unable to defend it properly, and having just had a goal ruled out due to a VAR review, it's Paris who extend their lead, and this one will count. Paris 2, Milan 0.
Mike Magnon's absolutely furious because they just don't switch on Milan. It's very smart from Paris. They play it very quickly. They just play the corner to Dembele. Nobody in the Milan team is really switched on. He manages to swivel onto his left boot, get the shot away. Maignan goes down, just doesn't quite push it far enough. He's under pressure from Marquinhos in the middle, and he pushes it straight to Kolo Muani, who's all alone, and manages to not only beat Maignan but beat the man on the line. But that all comes from really quick thinking from Paris, because they can see Dembele's there, and Milan still organising, still thinking about what they're doing, and they get caught out. So excellent goal for Paris.
A quick update, by the way, from Switzerland, because young boys have equalised against Manchester City. Some finish from Meshak Elia. He was played through one-on-one with Ederson. Ederson came storming off his line, and he scoops the ball high over the Brazilian international from outside the box. It drops perfectly into the yellow and black net, and young boys have got an equaliser. It's his second goal in the group stage this season. He's only got one in the Swiss Super League. It is young boys 1, Manchester City 1.
And Kolo Muani's goal, which has extended Paris's lead, is his first Champions League goal for Paris. Of course, he's on the 30-man shortlist for the Ballon d'Or. The announcement on that is next week in Paris. Here they come again, the home team. Dembele trying to square the ball in, having provided the assist for the second goal. It's a corner, and suddenly they're turning the screw.
They are, and one of the reasons they're able to do that is they have such mobility in that front three, because Dembele, Mbappe and Kolo Muani are all so quick, all so skillful, and if they get you one-on-one, you're in big trouble. So it's a very different Paris forward line, because it's really mobile, and it doesn't just hurt you in an attacking sense, it hurts you when they don't have the ball, because they can counter-press. And so it's a really interesting forward line.
Dembele from the short corner, swung in by Vitinha. It's a decent delivery. Maignan punches it, but the ball lands in the area. Skriniar's up for this. It's hanging around the penalty box until Leao gets it down and eventually wins the throw-in. I was going to say earlier, a year ago today, you were talking about the likes of Neymar, Messi, and obviously playing up with Mbappe. A year ago today, Paris beat Maccabi Haifa 7-2, and Mbappe, Messi and Neymar all scored in that game.
I think it's just a different type of forward line, and I think it's one that probably plays better to Luis Enrique's strengths as a coach, because he wants that ability to press, he wants that collective approach. And I do think these are early building blocks, and Paris has still got a long way to go, but it feels to me like a team that's functioning. They weren't great in the first half out because of what Milan did in terms of their press, but they've really played their way into it. And what they've shown, Dembele's goal, for example, was ruled out, but he showed you what he could do one-on-one with the defender. And that quick thinking just summed up the sharpness that they have, and I think it's promising early signs.
They have a 2-goal advantage. They are, at this moment, top of Group F. Milan are bottom of the group because Dortmund are winning in Newcastle. Paris have possession on the near side, their right, with Ousmane Dembele, who had a goal ruled out just before the second through no fault of his own. Referee has blown his whistle. It's going to be a Paris free kick. What do Milan do now, having conceded so early in the second half?
Well, I think the next few minutes are critical for them. They can't panic. They can't become ragged. They can't allow this game to open up too much, because if a third goal goes in, they're in big trouble. So it's a really difficult balance. I think they still have to try and get Rafael Leao on the ball. I think that's been the disappointment for them in the latter part of the first half and the first part of this half. When was the last time Rafael Leao had a run at Achraf Hakimi? It just hasn't happened. So I think they need to try and do that more if they possibly can. And they can't allow this to become the pattern, which is Paris having possession, having easy possession, and just moving them around the field.
They've robbed them of the ball here on the near side. Here is Leao now taking on Marquinhos, sending in a really powerful cross, which even Olivier Giroud, with his experience and good heading ability, couldn't head towards goal. And now Paris try to come away at pace. Zaire Emery has won it off his man. It's 4 against 3. Zaire Emery down the middle. He's got Mbappe to the left. It's played in to Kylian Mbappe onto his right foot. Saved by Maignan and hooked away by Milan down the far side of the field.
Excellent from Zaire Emery as well. Good driving run. Mbappe's gone for power. He's just flashed that goal instead of trying to bend it inside the far corner.
Yeah, some goals to tell you about. Atletico have got level at Celtic. It is 2-2 in Glasgow. Atletico brought on Marcus Llorente at half-time. What an impact. Right side of the area. Plays a wonderful cross, essentially blind, low to the back post. It bounces in front of Morata, who angles his body and steers a header superbly into the Celtic net. That is twice they've been behind. Twice the Rohi Blancos have got level. Meanwhile, Antwerp were leading 1-0 at half-time. They are now 2-1 behind. Eustáquio has scored a wonderful little finish after it was squared to him on the edge of the box by João Mario. He curls it into the corner. Wild celebrations on the touchline. Royal Antwerp 1, Porto 2. Remember, Antwerp 2-0 up on matchday 2. Eventually lost 3-2 to Shakhtar. They've squandered a lead again. Elsewhere, Young Boys 1, Manchester City 1, Leipzig 1, Cervena Zvezda 0, Newcastle 0, Dortmund 1 still in the northeast of England, and Paris Saint-Germain cruising and looking for more Mike Sewell.
2 up, almost an hour played. Milan clear their lines, but they're struggling to really get the ball under any kind of control at the moment, and they have something of a chase on in the final half hour or so. I wonder what Stefano Pioli will do in the near future. He brought on Calabria at the start of the second half to try and combat the threat of Kylian Mbappe, but they've managed to get a second goal and make it even harder for Milan, who, as it stands, have just 2 points in Group F and have yet to score. Paris come forward down this near side, the right, with their scorer of the second goal, Kolo Muani. Hakimi lays it off to Vitinha. We're still wide on this near side, just outside the penalty area. Back towards Zaire Emery and into centre field now. Back to the 17-year-old again. Zaire Emery waiting for a run from Hakimi. Vitinha decides to go back to Marquinhos. They're going to switch the play from right to left. Skriniar is actually being forced all the way back to his goalkeeper, but that's not going to worry Paris, really, is it?
No, and they do look more comfortable in possession. This is the kind of game they want to play, and Milan are finding it much more difficult to actually stop them playing it. They've disrupted them so well in the first half hour of the game, but now there are bigger spaces for Paris to play into. They're having a little bit more time in possession. It's really difficult for Milan. They've invested so much in the game so far. This is when it hurts and you have to keep going.
Referee Vincic has just given a yellow card to Tomori for a challenge on Colomwani. Tomori's looking at the referee in disbelief. I don't think he knows what he's done, but we can see from the replay what's happened. It's just a stray arm that seemed to catch Colomwani in the face. No intent there.
No, it's just a little bit clumsy. He's tried to hold him off. He's tried to just kind of do what defenders do, which is kind of just set their territory and try and just hold him off, but the hand is a little bit high, the arm is a bit high, and he just catches him. So, as you say, you're absolutely right. No malicious intent in that, but he does catch him nevertheless.
So a third Milan player to go into the referee's notebook, alongside a now departed Chow and Rada Krunic. Paris have it. They've had a lot of possession since half-time. Mbappe drops to the halfway line. He's then caught from behind. It's going to be another free kick. Maybe the frustrations are kicking in for Milan.
Yeah, it's hard for them at the moment, Mike, because they're not quite getting to the Paris players in the way that they were, just a step slow.
What a goal from Xavi Simons for Leipzig tonight. He scored the best goal of the evening from about 20-25 metres out, slightly left of centre, cut from his left foot onto his right, and sweeps the perfect shot into the top corner past the keeper. What a goal. Leipzig 2, Crvena Zvezda 0. To Newcastle, our mark there, Joe Shannon.
Newcastle 0, Dortmund 1. Big chance for Newcastle. Callum Wilson 1-2 with Anthony Gordon inside the penalty area. It left Wilson 6 yards out, point blank range. Brilliant save from Gregor Kobel, the Dortmund goalkeeper, to deny it. Total noise at St James's Park, but still Newcastle 0, Dortmund 1.
2-0 to Paris. We're slightly ahead of the game in Newcastle, and Milan have possession with their goalkeeper dressed in all orange, Mike Maignan.
I think they've got a big problem here, Mike, because they've got Tomori and Kalulu both booked in quick succession, which is both centre-backs. That's going to make it very difficult in one-on-one defending in the closing stages.
Here Milan on the edge of the area, left foot shot, well struck, but straight at Donnarumma from Pulisic.
Yeah, the idea is right. Pulisic just squares him up, dances inside the challenge of Hernandez, and he's trying to bend it inside that far post, but he just gets the angle wrong. And Donnarumma able to grab it. It was moving and swerving, and he had to really watch that one into his gloves. That's the kind of thing Pulisic can do in those one-on-one situations. He can be a really dynamic player. He's had a good start to his Milan career so far. They just need to see more of it. They need to see Pulisic on the ball more, Rafael Leao on the ball more, just to try and push Paris back a bit.
What about the absence of crosses for Olivier Giroud that he used to get week in, week out when he was at Arsenal?
Yeah, I think one of the things we haven't seen as well, Mike, is we haven't seen Theo Hernandez get forward at all. And a big part of that has been Dembele's caused a real problem down that right flank, especially in this second half. He's just not been released at all.
And here is Ousmane Dembele into the Milan penalty area, checks one way, right foot shot in the end, but he was leaning back, and it's high above Maignan goal. But again, it's a threat from Paris, and they've been a threat for much of the second half, and Milan really are not troubling them at the other end of the field.
One of the things I always love about Ousmane Dembele is that he'll try things and he won't mind if they go badly wrong. He'll just get up and do it again. So there, he's obviously moved back out onto his right foot and he's ballooned it over the crossbar. But that won't enter his head as, well, I won't try that again. Because the next time with him, it could easily fly into the top corner. He's so talented and he's just always looking to make something happen. So sometimes it can look a bit deceptively ragged, but he is a brilliant footballer. He really is. And they've got that quality all across this attacking line, Paris. I think as the season develops, It's going to be about whether Luis Enrique can marry those possession principles with being able to unlock these three, and Gonzalo Ramos and Bradley Barcola and all of the attacking players they've got. If they can do that, they are genuine contenders to win this. They really are, because it feels to me like a potentially really competitive team at this level.
Well, they certainly responded well to their defeat against Newcastle on match day 2. They lead here as we approach the midway point of the second half. 2 goals, Mbappe and Kolo Muani, either side of half-time. But Milan have possession at the moment, and they're knocking it around quite neatly without really troubling Paris. Now, striding into midfield is Krunic to Leao, coming towards this left side. Musa finds Hernandez, back in field again, midway inside the Paris half, back out to the near side, the left. Musa steps in field and away from Dembele, comes central now, just outside the D. On the edge of the D was Pulisic, I think it was, and he lost his balance, and Paris can counter. Dembele, neat little touch, gets the return ball. He's got Mbappe at the back edge of the area. Is it too strong for him? It is. It was a really good opportunity that was, well, wasted, really.
Just slipped as he hits it. That was the only thing. The idea was right. Just trying to find Mbappe on the far side of the box, but he just overhits it.
OK, penalty in Switzerland. Young Boys 1, Manchester City 1, and it is City with the penalty. Rodri picked up on a loose ball in the penalty area, and he was clattered into by the Young Boys captain, Mohamed Al Kamara. It was clumsy, and it gives City the chance on 67 minutes to retake the lead, having gone ahead through Mamel Akanji's goal. We'll come back to the penalty in a moment, because Milan are attacking.
Leao from distance, but in the end it's a very disappointing shot.
It's handy for the penalty though, Mike, I will say that. So Erling Haaland steps up here. Haaland in sky blue for City. Left-footed, steps up and buries it down the middle of the Young Boys goal. A cool finish, another Champions League goal for an elite Champions League player. Young Boys 1, Manchester City 2. They have the lead again.
Hakimi for Paris, down the near side there right. Forward towards the halfway line. Kolo Muani is caught from behind, which is a slightly worrying moment for Milan, because I think it's one of their already booked players. The referee, I think, may well just have a word. That might be last chance. He says, be very careful with his words. Slavko Vincic.
Yeah, already on a yellow card, and he's come a long, long way to make that challenge as Fikayo Tomori, and he didn't need to do it. He's a long way from his own goal, just needs to stand up there and not go to ground, and they're on a real tightrope, Kalulu and Tomori, and Tomori has done this at times in his career because he's so front foot, because he wants to be aggressive and win the ball, and because that's in general what Pioli wants. Sometimes he oversteps it. Remember, he was sent off against Chelsea, for example, in the Champions League. He has been sent off in Serie A. It can happen. But at this stage, what you don't want is a situation where you're suspended for the next match. So they've got to be really careful in the last quarter of this game. I think the one thing that will disappoint Pioli, there's been a lot of good things in terms of their work without the ball, just haven't quite had the end product with the ball, and Rafael Leao has had a couple of shots that have not troubled the goalkeeper, so that's where maybe they could be a bit more clinical.
Okay, we need to catch up with Joe Shannon watching Newcastle Borussia Dortmund tonight.
And Newcastle 0, Dortmund 1 it remains. 20 minutes into the second half. One big chance in the second half to report. Callum Wilson 6 yards out, denied by Gregor Kobel. Both sides have made substitutions. Dortmund have a corner in front of the Leeds' end as it stands, after a cross from Adeyemi was deflected behind. It'll be taken on the near side by Sabitzer, right-footed towards the far post. That's headed away by Dan Burn for Newcastle. Close game. Newcastle still very much in it, but they're still seeking an equaliser. 1-0 down to Dortmund, and Dortmund have it with Hummels, who's pulled it back from the dead ball line, cleared away by Sandro Tonali, and in the end the flag was up anyway. So it's a free kick to Newcastle, who trail still by a 1-0.
Genuinely amazing. There's only been one goal tonight at St James's Park. Elsewhere, Young Boys 1, Manchester City 2, Leipzig 2, Cervena Zvezda 0, Celtic 2, Atletico 2, and Royal Antwerp 1, Porto 2, as AC Milan have a go, Mike Sewell.
Olivier Giroud just spotting that Donnarumma had come off his line. The ball landed at Giroud's feet after it hit Leao. He managed to actually guide it quite well towards the Frenchman, and he just nonchalantly lifted it up. But as we mentioned earlier, Donnarumma is so tall, it's hard to lob a goalkeeper like that.
There are goalkeepers you could try that with. Donnarumma's not one of them. He was always going to be able to pluck that out of the air, but the idea was right. But Milan need to up the intensity a bit here. It's difficult because they worked so hard without the ball, especially in the first half. But they've got to somehow dig deep and find a way to upset Paris, because what Luis Enrique teams are very good at, as we know, Mike, is keeping the ball. And that's exactly what they're going to try and do for the last 20 minutes of the game and make this a rather comfortable end for the match.
A 2-goal advantage. And now, possibly, no, referee has blown his whistle. Colomboane with the foul as he was trying to run through and put pressure on the Milan defence. Now, a double substitution from Paris Saint-Germain. Manuel Ugarte is coming off to be replaced by Fabian Ruiz. And the other change is going to see the departure of Ousmane Dembele to be replaced by Lee Kang-in, the Korea international who earlier this month won Asia Games gold with his country in a victory over Japan. So Ugarte, Dembele off, Lee and Fabian Ruiz on. And we have 19 minutes of the 90 left as Milan tried to attack down the far side. Across goes Hernandez to cut out Reinders. It comes off the Dutchman. He knew it came off him. He was trying to get the throw.
They haven't quite managed to get him on the ball as much as I think they would have liked. It's so difficult when Paris are dominating possession in the way that they are. Just on those substitutions, Fabian Ruiz, more of a ball player than Ugarte, not as much of a destroyer in midfield. They obviously feel they don't need that at the moment. They need Fabian Ruiz to just keep possession. He's very, very good at that, just keeping things ticking over in midfield. And Lee, a player with great energy, great threat, good guy to have in the closing stages.
He's on the ball now and he squares it to the edge of the D. Mbappe tries to nutmeg one of the Milan defenders. He wins a corner in the process.
Porto are 3-1 up at Royal Antwerp. Evan Nielsen off the bench has now scored a second goal. Wonderful flowing move that he finished off with a first-time finish. And Cervenes Vesta pulled one back at Leipzig. 2-1 now in the east of Journey. Marko Stamenic from close range, pouncing upon a deflected shot to run into his path in front of goal. Leipzig 2, Cervenes Vesta 1.
Paris corner from this near side, the right. It's going to be left by Lee for Vitinha to take, as has been the case in the game so far. The likes of Marquinhos and Skriniar, two central defenders, are forward. Going to have to be careful to keep an eye on those, the Milan defence. Right on the penalty spot, they break away. Vitinha low to the near post, falls at the feet of Giroud, who calmly just steps away from the ball. And then with the help of a teammate, gets it away. Back they come again, though, Paris. Vitinha on this near side, the right. Two Milan players for company. One being Giroud, then trots forward. Paris work the ball across the back line.
Those legs are burning for Milan now. Stefano Pioli's on the edge of his technical area trying to squeeze a bit more out of them, but it's hard, especially against a team like Paris who are moving the ball as well as they are. You're desperate to try and engage and try and win it.
They have a chance here, though. Here's Tijani Reinders towards the left now, just outside the box. Leao up against Marquinhos, goes onto his left foot, still going towards the dead ball line, and slightly unfortunate in that the attempted cross bounces off Marquinhos and then bounces back off him and out for a goal kick.
Yeah, Marquinhos did a really good job there. He didn't dive in, just stood his ground, and he watched the ball. He didn't watch what Rafael Leao was doing, and that's the way to try and defend him. But Rafael Leao again in a good position, just needs to do more of that, try and commit defenders, try and find the cross to get Milan back into this game.
Paris, as it stands, moving on to 6 points and top of Group F, with Newcastle trailing at home to Dortmund. This is almost at the midway point of the Champions League group stage. These two will meet again in the reverse fixture in Italy on match day 4. Vitinha has it on the far side, up against Calabria. Loose ball picked off by Tomori. Good turn in midfield, though, by Fabian Ruiz. Does a 360 and then plays it to Zaire Emery, and now it's coming out to the near side. They're right. Lee. And Hakimi. There's a willing runner down the channel here. Good run as well by Zaire Emery. Just has to check on the edge of the area. Back it goes to Lee. And now Hakimi. This time it's Hakimi who wants to make a dart forward. His progress is halted by a Milan player. Nice footwork from Lee. Midway inside the Milan half. Paris 2, Milan 0. 15 minutes of normal time remaining in this Group F encounter. It's back out with Vitinha on the left again, and this will just suit Paris down to the ground, Kevin.
Yeah, I think they're enjoying themselves at the moment, just keeping the ball, having those patterns, always options for the man on the ball. That's what Luis Enrique football's all about, that positional game. Just making sure that you're not isolated. And I think they've done a really good job of just drawing the sting out of Milan since that Kylian Mbappe goal. In truth, Milan haven't quite been able to consistently lay a glove on.
Paris now breaking away across the halfway line. Zaire Emery almost got away from Musa. The latter did enough just to knock him off the ball.
He's done okay in there, Yunus Musa. It's been a tough game for him. He's had a lot of players trying to pass the way around him, but he's got good energy. He wants to affect the game. He wants to try and break attacks up, and he's stuck to it. And it was his awareness, actually, that saw that Dembele goal ruled out, because he got to the ball before Ugarte, who fouled him, and that's what led to that goal being ruled out. So he's stuck at it, so I admire that.
I can see that Yacine Adli is preparing to come on. In fact, there are two Milan players, the other being Tommaso Pobega. We'll get to that in a moment.
City thought they had a third at Young Boys. They're 2-1 up, though, because the goal's been ruled out for handball in the build-up by Jack Grealish, who popped up onto his arm. He worked it to Alvarez, who played the 1-2 on the edge of the box with Haaland before converting into the corner. So it remains there. Young Boys 1, Manchester City 2. Back to Dortmund. They're back to Newcastle Dortmund, I should say. Final 16, Joe Shannon.
Newcastle 0, Dortmund 1. Newcastle continue to enjoy plenty of possession, but they are lacking a finishing touch in this second half. Hummels, Schlotterbeck and Kobel all outstanding for Dortmund defensively. The goalkeeper's made one brilliant stop in this second half to deny Callum Wilson. Newcastle 0, Dortmund 1.
What a win that would be for Edin Terzic. Elsewhere, Leipzig 2, Cervena Vesta 1, Celtic 2, Atletico 2. Twice they've trailed Atletico and got themselves level through Griezmann and Morata goals. And it's Antwerp 1, Porto 3. Get in touch with us, hashtag Matchday Live on Twitter.
Here come Milan into the penalty area. Layout shot, just squirming away from the near post. Donnarumma went down. I don't know if there was a touch from a Paris player, but it was a good breakaway from Leao. He did get a touch on it, Donnarumma.
It's really good from Hakimi as well, because he manages to get back there just to affect Leao, because Leao then can't go for that far post because he knows Hakimi's shutting him down, so he has to go for the near, and that plays into the hands of Donnarumma. So excellent defending from Hakimi in the end.
It's resulted in a corner for Milan from the near side. Theo Hernandez takes it, he drops it towards the penalty spot, headed away by Marquinhos. Milan have possession inside the centre circle. Double substitution made by Milan. I'll get to that in a moment, while they try and seek out a goal that would get them back into this game with 12 minutes of normal time remaining. They have it midway inside the Paris half, down centre field. Reinders just slips as he tries to play the ball out to the left. Someone else steps in and then guides it to Hernandez. They need white shirts in the middle. The cross is a decent one, which is met at the near edge of the 6-yard area by one of the substitutes, Tommaso Pobega, and now collected by Pulisic on the far side.
Yeah, we haven't seen that much, actually, Theo Hernandez down the left.
Here they come down the right. Oh, inside the penalty area. Adli goes down. A referee immediately says no penalty.
Yeah, it was just strength from Zaire Emery just moving across. Wasn't much of an appeal, truth be told, from Adli. And again, we see that physicality that Zaire Emery has. He just doesn't look out of place. He's 17. He's playing in the Champions League game against Milan, and he looks like he's played, 50, 60, 70 games at this level. That's why I compared him to Bellingham in the first half. He's not on Bellingham's level yet at the moment. That's understandable, because Bellingham's absolutely incredible. But he's got that vibe about him, that incredible maturity beyond his years, and that physical aspect to his game as well. And you just think, what's he going to be like when he's 21, 22, 23? It's quite exciting.
Leao coming forward for Milan on the near side. Paris deal with the threat and work it out of defence. Eventually, though, it can't retain possession. The substitutions, incidentally, Krunic and Musa went off. Adli and Pobega came on, and in fact, in Adli, they have a player who started his professional career with Paris, born in the city, only made one substitute appearance. He played 7 minutes for his hometown team. He's up against them now, looking for a goal along with Rafael Leao, who has possession with 10 minutes left. Clips it into the penalty area, sliced into the air by Skriniar. Milan will get the corner.
Yeah, they've pushed well in the last few minutes, Milan, just to try and make things a little less comfortable for Paris. And if they are to grab a goal, that would suddenly alter the dynamic, but Paris holding firm at the moment.
Milan corner. Hernandez behind it again, an out-swinging left footer. Clipped in, deep, headed towards goal by Olivier Giroud, but he was never really able to generate any power that would trouble Gianluigi Donnarumma. Yeah,
it was a standing start, really. He couldn't leap. He was tussling with the defender, and all he could do was kind of guide that. Just got up above Lucas Hernandez, but couldn't get the venom that he needed.
Paris in the right-back position with Hakimi down the line. Excellent hold-up play by Colomwani. Paris, though, have given it away, and then Milan do the same. Hakimi to the halfway. A lovely first touch from Lee Kang-in into Colomwani. That's an even better touch to find Hakimi on the edge of the area. They've got a man over here on the left. It's Kylian Mbappe, and it hits the post, courtesy of a save by Mike Maignan. It was nailed on for 3-0 in my view, but that was an excellent save by Maignan.
Sensational stop, it really is, because Mbappe has hit that so crisply, and it's a really firm touch to take it onto the post. Nicely worked by Paris. Unselfish from Vitinha to just work that to the left, and it's a great save, it really is.
Another substitution, and that's the last touch that Colomwani will have, because he's come off the field to be replaced by Gonzalo Ramos. So an attacking option on for Paris Saint-Germain. That was a lovely touch from Colomwani, even better than the previous touch.
Yeah, he's had a great game.
Lee Kang-in with the corner to the near post, and eventually Maignan gets the ball off Marquinhos, and then immediately volleys it upfield, looking for Christian Pulisic. Fabian Ruiz comes across the cover, but Pulisic, you can see he's looking tired now.
Well, they've made this decision, I think, to go a bit more direct and a bit longer, and I think that's fine. I think, you know, you have to try and mix it up. They do that sometimes. It's not unusual for Milan to go direct, especially to try and use the height of Olivier Giroud. That makes perfect sense. They're finding it difficult to play through Paris on the floor, so they might as well try and play in behind them if they can. I think since picking up that yellow card, he's defended really maturely. He hasn't dived in. He hasn't got himself into a situation where he's had to really try and hack down Rafael Leao or anything like that. I think he's growing in experience, growing in maturity.
In the meantime, Leao is coming into the penalty area. Donnarumma comes out and bravely launches himself at Leao's feet to claim possession and thwart the danger. He's worked really hard in the second half, Rafael Leao. He's got into the penalty area several times, just not his night.
Yeah, he'll always try. He'll always keep running at people, to keep trying to be involved. But he just hasn't quite been able to find that magic moment. And he's come up against some good defending as well. I mean, Marquinhos there, again, doesn't dive in, holds his position, says, OK, what have you got? And the ball bobbles away from Rafael Leao, and he can't move Marquinhos to get that shot away. So I think between Marquinhos and Hakimi, they've done a pretty decent job against him in this second half.
Lee on the halfway line, twisting and turning and trying to get the better of Hernandez, and in the end he does. He's fouled and wins the free kick. And when you look at the situation a few weeks ago when Paris were being blown away by Newcastle, the shifting sands of the UEFA Champions League, especially in this group, look at it now. Paris will be top of the group if it stays like this, and Newcastle can't get anything against Dortmund.
Well, I think you look at the difference in formation, and that extra man in midfield makes such a difference for this Paris team, because the one thing they've had in their 2 home games largely has been control. The one thing they absolutely did not have at Newcastle was control at any stage of that game. So it'll be really interesting going forward to see what Luis Enrique does, whether he sticks with this 4-3-3 or whether he does try that 4-2-3 one more often, but they look more solid here.
Well, they say that you learn more from your failures than your successes, and maybe Paris have done that. They certainly look like they've done it tonight, although Leao is on the run again, and the ball is sticking to his feet. Eventually, he loses his balance. He claims that he may well have been fouled in the process, and he's screaming at the referee, saying a foul, amongst other things.
Yeah, I think, again, they've just tracked him. That's all they've done. They've just had enough men back there just to track his stride, let him lose possession. They've done a terrific job there, just shadowing him.
Are Paris going to put this game to bed now? It's played through. Ramos can't get the first touch. Picked up on the edge of the area on the right, the left by Mbappe. He's got 3 white-shirted players for company. Vitinha now back into centre field. Ruiz coming across here to Hakimi. Hakimi goes for the long-range effort, but it's rather wild from the Moroccan, way over the crossbar, and it just feels like we're just gradually seeing out this game now.
It's interesting. I was thinking about the game last night between Galatasaray and Bayern. There are a couple of parallels in the sense that, I mean, Galatasaray's press against Bayern was incredibly fierce, but they maintained that for 70 minutes and couldn't keep it going the whole way. Milan pressed fiercely in that first half hour, just dropped off after the goal. So as soon as it drops, a team with real quality, like Bayern or like Paris, they can pick you off if those spaces begin to open up.
We've had an extraordinary 60 seconds or so in the Champions League. 3 goals and a red card. Evan Nielsen off the bench has completed his hat-trick at White Royal Antwerp. So Antwerp 1, Porto 4. Rodrigo de Paul's been sent off for Atletico away at Celtic. So Atletico down to 10 men. It's 2-2 in Glasgow. Erling Haaland has his second of the day, his second in this season's Champions League with 4 minutes to play, curling into the top corner from inside the box. Young Boys 1, Manchester City 3. And Dani Olmo has scored, just coming back from that knee injury, isn't he? His second substitute appearance since his return. He pounced upon the fact that a header was guided off the bar. He was there to turn it in. Nice celebration for him too. Leipzig 3, Cervantes Vesta 1, I think. That's everything. Let's go to Newcastle and catch up with Joe Shannon.
Newcastle 0, Dortmund 1, 5 minutes plus stoppage time left for Eddie Howe's side to try and salvage a point. Or will Dortmund get their first win of this season's UEFA Champions League group stages? The first half goal from Felix Nemecha separates the two sides. Newcastle, for all of their possession and all of their work rate and the endeavour that we've seen, not just from the players on the field, but the noise from the fans in the stadium as well, for all of that, they've only created one clear-cut opportunity in the second half. Callum Wilson denied by Gregor Kobel, and Dortmund have continued to look a threat on the counter-attack. Newcastle tried to force an equaliser, but at the moment it doesn't look likely. Newcastle 0, Dortmund 1.
And that game should finish before ours in Paris, meaning we'll have the closing stages of Newcastle 0, Dortmund 1. But into the final 2 minutes of the 90, Paris Saint-Germain looking the most comfortable of almost any team here, Mike, in the late kickoffs.
Certainly after half an hour of this game, and they're looking to get a third goal. Zaire Emery into the area, squares the ball in. It's going to fall for Lee, and Lee buries it in the bottom corner. The substitute blasts it in to complete the night. 3 points, 3 goals. Paris Saint-Germain 3, Milan 0.
And this is all about that terrific teenager Warren Zaire Emery, because he has strength to break away from the Milan midfield. Then he powers down that inside right channel, and then it's about awareness. He gets his head up, he looks at what's around him, and it's a perfect cutback, and it gives Lee the opportunity to just take it in stride, hit it first time, find that bottom corner. That was terrific play. It starts actually with Lee coming in off the touchline. Zaire Emery just powered away from Adli, who wasn't able to stay with him. and then he's just got the perfect weight on that cutback and a lovely finish from Lee.
And that's his first goal for Paris Saint-Germain. Lee Kang in, left-footed, cleanly struck, well placed, and again Mannion completely motionless on his line, could do nothing about it.
Let's go back to St James's Park. Newcastle come close, Joe.
Newcastle have hit the woodwork. Callum Wilson with a flying header from Matt Targett's left-footed free kick, whipped into the penalty area. Wilson rose majestically, but denied by the crossbar. It stays out, and it's still Newcastle 0, Dortmund 1.
Elsewhere, Leipzig 3, Cervena Zvezda 1, Young Boys 1, Manchester City 3. They've just taken off Haaland. He scored twice today. His first goal is actually in 6 Champions League games. Celtic 2, Atletico 2. Atletico down to 10 men there. Antwerp 1, Porto 4. Evan Nielsen with a hat-trick off the bench. Earlier today, Barcelona beat Shakhtar by 2-1. Feyenoord saw off Ajax by 3-1. Closing stages, added time now at the Parc des Princes. Mike Sewell.
And Milan have just brought on another substitute, the experienced 34-year-old Danish defender Simon Kjær. He's on for Tomori as Paris look for a 4th goal in 4 minutes of added time. Zaire Emery again, just outside the area on this near side. He got caught and then just stumbled in, didn't get a free kick. And now it's all a bit messy in midfield as Milan come away with it. Leao into the centre circle. He's got plenty of options left and right. He goes to the left edge of the area. Hernandez plays it in with a rather lazy pass. And Paris thwart it. And Donnarumma's happier than anyone because obviously a goalkeeper doesn't want to ruin a clean sheet.
No, absolutely
He's about
not.
to get.
It's a tough one for Theo Hernandez there because you kind of get stuck between 2 ideas. It's whether you get the ball out of your feet and you drive for goal, or you try and square it to the far post where all your teammates are. So you kind of got stuck between 2 ideas there.
So we've had 1 minute of added time. Milan have a corner. It's going to be nothing but a consolation if they were to score. Hernandez takes it, headed away with ease by Paris down this near side. It'll be collected by Yassine Adli and played back down this left to Hernandez again. Feeds it downfield. Reinders. 2 Paris players in front of him. Good footwork from Pulisic. Wants to take the throw in quickly. Well, credit to Milan, they're still going. They haven't given up, even though the points are heading Paris's way. It's lifted clear, picked up by Adli, given straight back to Paris, and Hernandez plays it down the middle. There are 2 players running onto it. Vitinha has got Mbappe to the left. He's trying to hold in an onside position. Here he is now, Kylian Mbappe, left-hand angle of the penalty area, lays it back to Vitinha, but it was well read by Olivier Giroud, who then thumps the ball straight at the referee. Inadvertently.
It's a bit of a heavy touch from the referee there. I think he'll be disappointed. Just wants to cushion that on his thigh if he can, and then he's in on goal. Look, I thought it's been a really intriguing game, this, actually, Mike, because if you hadn't watched it and you looked at the scoreline, you'd think, well, that was a routine, dominant Paris display. They've been very good, but you look at that first half hour and they were discomfited. There's no doubt about it. Milan pressed well, got in their faces, made it difficult, but that bit of brilliance from Mbappe just opens up the game. It knocks Milan back psychologically, and it just allowed Paris to slowly but surely get control of this game.
And the early goal in the second half from Kolo Muani really put Milan on the back foot. Paris now have 3 goals, thanks to Lee's strike just a moment ago. We're into the final minute of added time. Looks like Paris are going top of Group F, which you may not have thought would be possible after their last game and the nature in which they lost, but they've responded really well.
It's been a good reaction, I think, and it's been, you know, a bit of humility from Luis Enrique, really, in the sense that he will know. I mean, it's, you know, there's been a huge debate in France about the team selection and the formation that he used against Newcastle, and he's reverted to what worked so well against Dortmund on match day 1, and it's been a very similar display in that they've been very controlled. They've come through tough periods in the game. They've looked sharp. I think their second goal, the quickly taken corner, was a really good example of that. And they have really good attacking players. But what I do like about this Paris team is the physicality and the willingness to work without the ball. That is critical. I think it's something you have to do if you're going to win the UEFA Champions League. And early days with Luis Enrique, but they do seem to have it.
Well, he's done it before with Barcelona 8 years ago. Can he do it again? Paris have possession. We've had the 4 minutes of added time. There can't be much more to play in Paris. As it's played back to Marquinhos, the captain, and he'll be in no hurry. In fact, the whistle has gone, and Paris Saint-Germain have responded in good fashion to their defeat last time out. And they've won here by 3-0 thanks to Kylian Mbappe's strike after 32 minutes. An early second-half goal by Kolo Muani, and then Lee wrapping it up just before the 90. Paris Saint-Germain, Paris Saint-Germain 3, Milan 0.
OK, let's get to Newcastle. Final moments there, Joe Shannon.
90 seconds of stoppage time remain. Newcastle 0, Dortmund 1.
You've been listening
to Rodney and Tommy. Noon Eastern, the United States of Soccer with Jason. At 3 p.m, Paris Saint-Germain versus Milan live play-by-play. Counter-attack at 5 p.m. with Tony and Eric. From 7 p.m, New York Red Bulls against Charlotte. And from 9:30 p.m. Eastern, Sporting Kansas City against San Jose Earthquakes. Rodney's there. Rodney, talking of chairman, how much as a player did you have to do with chairman? Was there any you loved, any you couldn't stand in your career?
Oh, Neil, great question, because I absolutely loved one. I despised another one. The first one I actually played for was a bloody comedian at the London Palladium. Tommy Trinder was a comedian, so I've had my share. But I've got to tell you very quickly, no, I can't waste it on your show, but later I will talk about the chairman, Jim Gregory, at Queen's Park Rangers.